Hi, friends. Here we are again looking at our book Thunder Underground by Jane Yolen. And we're going to look at another poem today. We have talked about a couple of poetic devices, which is something that poets would use in their when they're writing their poems to make their poems more interesting and maybe catchy. So we've talked about alliteration, which is where poets might use the same sound, beginning sound, over and over again in words when they're writing their poems. And then we also talked about rhyme, which is what we usually think of when we talk about poems where you have rhyming words. So today we are going to talk about repetition. And so repetition is when certain words or sounds or phrases are used more than once in a poem. And poets might use repetition to just emphasize certain feelings or an idea, or they might want to create a sense of rhythm when they are writing their poem. And so it might sound more catchy when you're saying the poem if you're repeating the same words or phrases over and over again. So, in this poem that you see on this picture, you might be very familiar with. It's you might be familiar with it in a song, "The Wheels on the Bus." So we will. You can read along with me as I say this poem. The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, round and round. The wheels on the bus go round and round, all through the town. I'm sure you sang that song or said that poem a lot when you were little. So, in this poem, the words round and round repeat over and over again. So, that is an example of repetition in this poem. So, the poet who wrote this wanted to repeat those words over and over again to create rhythm. So it's fun for us to say over and over again. So today we're going to look at another poem from our book. It's called Magma Pools. This is a really cool picture of a volcano, and you can see what is happening underneath the ground, underneath that volcano, that all that magma, which is what the that hot liquid that forms under the ground and blasts out of the volcano and turns into lava. When it comes out of the volcano, you can see it forming under the ground. So I want you to listen to this poem as I read it to you, and I want you to see if you can find any words that repeat. Magma pools. Hot, hot, hot in magma pools, becoming rock when magma cools. So, should we wait an age or two to see what magma pools can do? I haven't got the time. Have you? Okay, did you hear any words that repeated? Right at the very beginning, the first three words, hot, hot, hot. Those were our words that repeated in the poem. Why do you think that the author or the poet chose to say hot, 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 say those words three times? You might have thought that the author or the poet chose to repeat those words over and over again three times to create emphasis, to emphasize that those words, hot, 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 when that person says it three times, that makes me think that the magma is really hot, right? If the author had just said hot once, I would say, oh yeah, the magma's hot. But saying it three times makes it seem like it's very important and that it's very hot. So I think the poem is creating, the poet is creating a sense of importance there and showing us that the magma is really hot by repeating those words three times. Okay, did you find another poetic device in this poem? Did you see any rhyme in the poem? I think I see some rhyming words. Do you see the words pools? I see pools and cools. Pools, cools. Do those rhyme? They sure do. And what about the words to and do? To do. Do those rhyme? They sure do. So we have some rhyming words. Do we see any examples of alliteration where we have repeating beginning sounds? Let's see. I guess we could say that we have these three words that are repetition, hot, hot, hot. They also have the same beginning sounds, but they are the same words. So I guess you could say that that is alliteration, but that's more repetition. I don't see a good example of alliteration in this poem. Okay, what we're going to do now, I want us to take a look at two other poems written by a famous poet named Shel Silverstein. And you might know his poems. He is a very famous children's poet and writes many funny poems or just many just neat poems. So he also wrote a book that you might have heard of called The Giving Tree. You might have read that sometime in your life, and it's a very cool book if you want to look that up. That's not a poem, but it's a storybook. But Joel Silverstein is mostly known for his poems. And one of my favorite books that he wrote is Where the Sidewalk Ends. And my favorite poem of all time, my favorite poem of any poem out there, is this poem written by Shaw Silverstein called Ickle Me, Pickle Me, Tickle Me Too. So I want you to follow along with me as I read this poem, and I want you to see if you can find examples of alliteration, rhyme, and repetition in this poem. Okay, so ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Went for a ride in a flying shoe. Hooray, what fun! It's time we flew, said Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Ickle was captain and Pickle was crew, and Tickle served coffee and mulligan stew. As higher and higher and higher they flew, Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Over the sun and beyond the blue. Hold on, stay in, I hope we do, cried Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Never returned to the world they knew, and nobody knows what's happened to dear Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Such a fun poem to read. Maybe you can practice reading that too. At one point when I was younger, probably when I was in about third or fourth grade, I memorized this poem for class. So I think it's so fun to say. So, do you hear any examples of alliteration, or did you see any examples of alliteration? We definitely have some words that have the same kinds of sounds. Let's see if we have any examples of alliteration. I don't necessarily see words that have the same beginning sound, but we definitely have a lot of words that sound alike. And we would think of that if they have the same ending sounds, we could say that they rhymed. So let's move on to rhyme. Do we see any rhyming words? For sure, that ickle, pickle, tickle, those are all rhyming words. I see the words to and shoe and flew, crew, stew, flew, blue, new. So those are all rhyming words, right? They don't necessarily all have the same ending letters, but they all sound the same. They all have the same ending sound. Do you see any repetition in this poem? We see a lot of repetition in this poem. Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. That is repeated throughout the poem and provides a sense of rhythm over and over again as we read the poem. So I also see some repetition in these words as higher and higher and higher they flew. And that tells me, kind of like our poem about the magma, when they say hot, 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 that tells me that it's really hot. And in this poem with higher and higher and higher, it makes me think that they're just going flying higher and higher and higher. Okay, that's a favorite poem of mine. And I also wanted to share one more poem with you from this book by Shel Silverstein. This is called Boa Constrictor. So this is also another fun poem that I wanted to share with you. Boa Constrictor. Oh, I'm being eaten by a boa constrictor. A boa constrictor. A boa constrictor. I'm being eaten by a boa constrictor, and I don't like it one bit. Well, what do you know? It's nibbling my toe. Oh, gee, it's up to my knee. Oh, my! It's up to my thigh. Oh, fiddle! It's up to my middle. Oh, heck! It's up to my neck. Oh, dread! It's. That is silly too. Do you see any examples of alliteration in our poem? There's not any repeated beginning sounds really in this poem. It's hard to find alliteration sometimes. Do you see any examples of rhyme in this poem? I see the words, let's see, no and toe, G and knee, my, thigh, fiddle, middle, heck, neck. Lots of rhyming words. Do you see any repetition in this poem? We see up at the top, the poet Shel Silverstein said boa constrictor, a boa constrictor, a boa constrictor. He kept saying about being eaten by a boa constrictor. And then he repeats these phrases. The word "oh" he repeats over and over and over again. And then he also repeats "it's up to my," and he names a different body part. It's up to my, it's up to my, it's up to my. And again, that provides a sense of rhythm and helps us to better read it. And kind of like when you're reading it, it almost has sort of a rhythm and a beat to it. And a lot of songs do that as well. All right, friends. So the last thing that you're going to work on now that we're done reading our poems is you are going to take these sets of words that repeat, and I want you to create a sentence using these repeating words. So I linked this page in your. Actually, I put these words in your plans. I didn't link this page. This is just on the screen right now. But I did put these words in your plans so you can look back at the plans and see these words. But you are going to make a sentence using the words pop, 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 shh, 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 yes, 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 and beep, beep. So an example of this would be if I wrote a sentence using the words beep, beep, repeating, I could say, beep, beep, said the Jeep as it drove down the street. That would be my sentence. That's an example. So don't use my example. Think of something a little bit different that you could say for beep, beep. But see if you can come up with 4 different sentences using those repeating words and practice that repetition. Have a great day.